Thank you. And tonight it is my pleasure to introduce Tim R. from LA.
Praise How we doing? I even got music. They actually pay me to stand up and talk to people. Go figure. My name's Tim Ryan, grateful recovering alcoholic, sober by the grace of God, 12-step based program, a sponsor, and a little bit of effort on my part. My sobriety date is November 1st, 2012. I have a sponsor, Feldy. I have a grand sponsor, Kimball. Between those two knuckleheads, 50, 60, 70, 89 years, 88 years sobriety. So I got good lineage. Jennifer, I love you. My wife. Scott, thanks for asking me to come speak. It's an honor. I throw a lot of shit quick, and I talk, and I swear. And if you don't like that, put me on your 10-step inventory tonight, because I don't give a shit. I don't people please anymore. You can't swear, you can't talk about drugs. Sorry, I'm speaking, you can't tell me what to do. Bam. I didn't used to laugh because I was friggin' miserable 24/7. I grew up on a lake in northern Illinois called Crystal Lake, about a half hour south of the Wisconsin border. My mom and dad went out and bought 4 kids. They adopted us. My older brother, he's just an asshole. Then they got me. Then they got my little brother and sister, and we were the weird family because my little brother and sister are 3/4 Chippewa Indian. So they're Native American. Then you had me, and where we grew up, there was no Hispanics, African Americans. It was Katie and Kevin. And you know what kind of names they were called, so I learned to protect them with my mouth and fist. And I learned once I got sober. How many people here are adopted? Put your hands up. Not many. Do you realize people that are adopted are 48,000 times more susceptible to become an alcoholic or drug addict just due to the abandonment issues? I didn't realize that. I fit that category. I also had an older brother that was a narcissist. He beat me up every day for 10 years. There's trauma. I had learning disabilities. I'm the stupid kid. Who took the ACT? Remember that test? Perfect score was a 36. I took it 5 times. I got an 11 each time. I spelled about a 3rd grade level. That's a true story. I don't know what a verb and adjective pronoun is. You can throw all that shit out the window because I could care less. I got Siri. I got ChatGPT. But you take all those, and I got molested by the female babysitter for 2 days while my parents were out of town, and I remember that too. So those were all my traumas. And what was my solution? Fucking alcohol and drugs. But I didn't know it. I grew up on a lake. All I gave a shit about was that lake. Fishing, ice skating, canoeing, sailing, water skiing. I was a professional water skier from 14 to 21. I wouldn't go to school in grade school until I caught 2 bass every day. True story, I'd go in with worm shit all over. I didn't care. School to me was a social gathering. I hated high school. I knew everyone. I fit in with everyone because I didn't let people get too close to me. I knew the freaks, the jocks. I joined the football team. No, because I'm water skiing at 5:30 in the morning. I'm not coming to football practice. My best friend was a senior in high school when I was a freshman, Randy. And the drinking age in Wisconsin was 18 years old. So as a freshman in high school, we're going up to Lake Geneva drinking every weekend, and Randy's blonde hair, blue eyes, 6'1", 918, 65's his birthday. I'll tell you his driver's license and social security number to this day, because I just take his ID and go in. And so 15, I got introduced to cocaine, a sophomore in high school, tried 1 line, had a half gram fronted to me that night. Yeah, I like cocaine. Didn't like weed much. I got on the work program junior and senior year, so I ran a pizza restaurant. I'd be out of school at 10:30. I'd go home, go to the pizza shop, flip on the ovens, go home, water ski all afternoon, get to the pizza shop at 4. But every Friday, Thursday, Saturday night, it was lots of cocaine. And I barely got out of high school. And I had the opportunity to go down to college in Louisiana for a few reasons. A, they had open admissions. I had a 1.4 grade average. I wasn't going to college. But in Louisiana, if you pay the bill, you can go to college. So I scoped out Monroe, Louisiana, Northeast Louisiana University. They had the best intercollegiate water ski team in the country. It was 3-to-1 girl to guys I could hunt and fish, and it was last state to have the drinking age 18. Monroe, Louisiana sounded like a great idea. So my mom and I flew down there. I was 17. I couldn't wait for her to get on the plane and fly back so I can get to the liquor store. And that was college. I studied partyology. I have a PhD in it. I have a PhD in partying and pain. That's what I studied. I never got on the water ski team because Dean Murphy told me I was a liability. You show up for practice hungover, you're missing tournaments, you can't be a part of it. Okay, cool, fine by me. Anyone in here do ecstasy in their using days? Where are my ex-heads? Ecstasy was legal in the state of Texas up until 1985. Well, when I went to college in 86, we got the hook up in Dallas, and we'd go every other weekend and buy 10,000 hits for $1 a piece. And we'd come back, sell them 10, 15 bucks, and that just allowed me the opportunity to buy more cocaine, and we could pick magic mushrooms. I got into hallucinogenics. I had a great time in college. I really did. Didn't learn a fucking thing. But I got to water ski, I got to hunt and fish, and if I really look at it, yeah, I had some fun. But it really wasn't, because I just struggled to fucking make money and this and get by. And I was actually in that town about 6 months ago scoping out a treatment center, and it was weird to be back on that campus. Nothing has changed. The fucking town has stood still. But I was able to close the door on that chapter of my life. And that was really beautiful, and you're the one that told me to do that. And I went to the bayou. And I sat there and I prayed and I talked to God. And I flew out of there and I never looked back. I get emotional sometimes too. I'm a big pussy. Don't let anybody know that. No, I'm not. Did I tell you I go by R689152? That's my Illinois Department of Corrections prison number. See, 13 years ago today I was an inmate in prison. That's where I got sober. Judge Wattis said 7 years. See, I got introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous at 16 years old when, so funny. I was telling this story the other day because a buddy of mine, Joey, who's an artist in L.A., buys paper from a guy, John. John's my older brother's best friend, and John was the one in high school that got caught, went to rehab, and told my parents he did cocaine with me. I still got a resentment towards John. I remember my parents busted me, and they dragged me to a place in Hoffman Estates called the Ark. Remember bullshitting my way out of that assessment, and they said I could do outpatient, and by the time I got home, I convinced my parents I didn't need any help. At 20, I go to college, I blew that up, came back, do some odd jobs, get into dealing coke. I met Roger, and he was 20 years older than me, and we'd go to Chicago every day, the north side, and we'd go to noon mass, and we'd kneel down in the Catholic church, and a Colombian lady would hand us 2 ounces of cocaine in a newspaper. Did a lot of drug deals in churches. True story. True story. It was really weird because she was a Catholic to the core, but she was one of the biggest drug dealers in the Midwest. It was totally insane. And then I used to buy drugs from a Chicago detective, so there's lots of corruption out there. But it got dark real quick. I started smoking cocaine. I started stealing checks from my mom's business and cashing them at my buddy's gas station. I'm now 21, and I was working at a place called Fredder's, selling stereo equipment and shit, and I opened a phone book, because we didn't have cell phones and all that back then, and I looked up a rehab. And it was called Parkside Lodge in Mundelein, Illinois, and I drove there on a Friday afternoon. I was trying to check in, and I remember they were trying to run my parents' insurance or whatever, and they had me sit in on a group, and I had $400 in my pocket, and as they're talking more drugs, I'm like, fuck, I'm out of here. I'm going to get high. So I left, got high for a week, and my buddy called my mom and said, hey, Mrs. Ryan, you do know Tim's got a drug problem because he's cashing $500 checks every day at my gas station off your bank account and your other son's bank account. So cat was out of the bag. I got my little brother, bought a case of beer, so take me to rehab. So me and my brother drank a bunch of beers on the way to rehab, and I checked in. When I went to rehab in January of 1990 at 21 years old, I wanted to quit doing cocaine, and I wanted to figure out how to drink like a normal person because I thought it was a Coke, but every time I drank, I put cocaine in my system. I I went through all the motions. I couldn't tell you what my relapse prevention kit is. I couldn't tell you who my therapist was. I know I put on 30 pounds and ate like a king, but I remember 2 days before I got out, my parents came to visit. My dad was senior vice president of a company called E.F. Hutton. He had worked there 26 years. He had never missed a day of work. He commuted an hour and a half each way to work by a train. And I remember he came to visit me. He's like, fuck, Tim, what's going on? What did we do wrong as parents? He's like, I'm fucking up billion-dollar trades, and all I'm worried about is you. And I said, you guys didn't do anything wrong. And he goes, oh, I know that. I'm like, shit, where are you going with this one? See, that cult called Al-Anon got to my mom and dad. So, still got a resentment towards Al-Anon. And my dad says, you know, Tim, when you're getting help, we got some help too. And I learned I didn't cause your disease, I can't cure it, and I can't control it. And he said, son, I'm not going to contribute to it either. So you're welcome to come home, but the day you quit going to those meetings and you pick up and use, don't let the door hit you or God split you. I'm like, cool. So I started going to the Crystal Lake Alano Club. One of my dad's best friends started it in 1950, Tommy Riley. And I'd sit in the meetings, put my hand up, I'm looking for a sponsor, nobody pick on me. Fuck yeah, I got away with it again. See, I'm the guy that thought I'd get sober through osmosis. I hang out with a bunch of sober people, I'll get sober. For all you new people, it doesn't work that way. Trust me. I'll tell you about pain. I got 32 years of it in and out of these fucking rooms. Because my ego was so big. My pride was so big. I did not know what 6 and 7 were. Little things about humility, getting humble. No clue. My ego is bigger than this. And I think I use it kind of as a mask. I use humor a lot to fit in because of my learning disabilities and my trying to communicate with people. Now, talking shit, I can sell shit to a fucking Eskimo or snow to a farmer, whatever that is. That's the dyslexia. I just want to catch you off there. I could sell snow to an Eskimo and shit to a pig farmer. But it was that insecurity and stuff, and I always felt good when I had a little booze in me or a little something. And it'd work for about an hour or two, and then it'd just get out of control because I had no off switch. Let's go out and have 2 beers. Who the hell has 2 beers? I'm going to have 6 beers, 6 shots. I'm going to go to straight vodka, and I will end up in handcuffs, a hospital bed. That's it. I made it about a year sober. I started an asphalt seal coating business, hired all my alcoholic friends. Me and my buddy had a barefoot water ski school. We ran on the Fox River. I started competing that year. I won Illinois State, Wisconsin State, Michigan State. I slid to win the U.S. Nationals. And at the Midwest Regionals, I was doing a turn and I fell and I blew out L4, L5, S1, and my career was over instantly. And Dr. Wu prescribed me 300 Vicodin. And I didn't like Vicodin, so I went back smoking dope. As soon as I went back smoking dope, 2 days later I went back to drinking, and I started doing cocaine that day. Very quickly, I sold my seal coating business to my friend Matt. I got a knock on my apartment door, you're evicted. And my partner Mike with the water ski school said, hey Tim, I'm taking the ski school to Boca Raton, Florida, but you're not coming with because you're a liability. I kept fucking hearing I'm a liability, which I was. I will take you out in a fucking second, and I don't care. I'm a chaos agent. I will pull people in my ride because I need the chaos with me. And I'm going to keep going. So that's what I do. Everyone seen a tornado? I'm the biggest tornado of destruction to walk this fucking planet, and I didn't care. No malice whatsoever. I just didn't care. I cared about staying medicated. I then moved to Texas to get away from my problems, pulled credit card fraud on my best friend, got to spend a week in the Travis County Jail being an all-white guy on an all-black tech doesn't go too well. Got my ass kicked every day, got to sleep next to the shitter, and ironically, some lady that used to babysit me is now state's attorney, and my mom got me released, and I hightailed it out of Texas for 20 years. Finally got that warrant cleared up. But I met some guys at the Bolden Alano Club in Austin, Texas, that were young selling cable television door to door, and they're all making money. So I started working with them. We went to Michigan, knocking doors, and we're making money. The funny thing is, when you take a hillbilly that's 18 years sober from Texas to northern Michigan, funny shit happens. He's never left Texas. So we're up by Houghton Lake, if you know where that is, about an hour and a half south Traverse City, and we're knocking doors. It's a little hillbilly area. We'd meet at the hotel at night. Mark comes back and he goes, hey, what's with all the fucking pilgrims? I go, what are you talking about? He said, there's pilgrims. They ride their horse and buggy. I said, those are the Amish people. He had never seen an Amish person in his life, so take an alcoholic out of Texas, go have them see an Amish person, they'll think they're pilgrims. I actually ran into Mark 7 years ago. He came, I had a speaking event in San Antonio, and he showed up. Bless you. Where was I? I just cracked myself up. I know the Amish people. So anyhow, we're traveling the country. We're in Michigan. I get to go to Buffalo, New York, and manage a project. I do that. Projects would be 3 to 6 months, and I'm back in California, and I had the opportunity to go back to New York and start my own business, and I did. And within 6 months, I had 60 people working for me, and I'm 22 years old, and I'm profiting 30 to 40 grand a week. Made my first million then. I see you, honey. Thank you. And I burned it down within a year and a half. 60 families were out of work because I'm the guy that couldn't put my hand up and ask for help. I couldn't stop smoking coke, doing coke, and destroyed that. I went from making 30 to 40 grand a week profit, going back to mommy and daddy's house, and accepting a job as a headhunter for a $300 a week draw against commission. Yeah, owed the IRS, I don't know, 180, 250 grand, whatever. Did an offer in compromise and started going back to meetings for about a week. And I went to interview for a recruiting job. And I go to interview in this guy's house, and he's got a suit on and all this shit. And I'm like, what the fuck? So he's telling me, and I'm like, yeah, I'd love to work here. And he said, I never said I'm hiring you. And I noticed 2 books on his desk, a big book and a new pair of glasses. So this dumb son of a bitch is sober. I said, hey, Bob, are you sober? He said, yeah, I'm 7 years. I said, I'm 2. He said, you're hired. I wasn't 2 days sober. I can talk. Rarely have we seen a person fail who's thoroughly. I could quote all that bullshit. So I learned the recruiting business, made a boatload of money, and started drinking right again. And, well, if I made 20 grand, Bob made half. Or if I made 20, he made 20. I made 10, he made 10, so I did what I wanted. I always put myself in jobs where I'm not wanted, you need me. I'm a really good worker. I always had a work ethic, and I'll work really hard, but you're going to pay me for it, and I'm going to do what the fuck I want because I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict, and I need to hide or cover my addiction or let you know I got one, and you don't give a shit. So that's the way it usually is. I went to work for one of our clients. They called looking for a recruiter, and I wanted to work there. So I quit my job immediately. I went and sat by my phone, and my boss called me and said, hey, man, would you go consider interviewing for Pete? I'm like, nah, I already got a job, but I'll do you a favor. And it all worked out, and I got the job, and I went to work in the management consulting business. And I would be in my office in Chicago, and it was an hour drive at 6 in the morning. My boss got in at 6:30. I was always in before him. If he left at 7 at night, I left at 7:30. I was always in before the boss. I never left till he left. But there was Bennigan's restaurant, one of the buildings, and that's where I'd interview people. I'd interview you at noon, 1, 2, 3, 4. My cocaine would get delivered, 5, 6, 7. And I could sit at the bar and drink all day. It's the greatest job in the world. But very quickly, I've got a custom Harley. I've got a custom Ski-Nautique boat, pearl white Jeep. I'm making a shitload of money. I'm hiring people with MBAs and PhDs, and I got the 1.4 grade average, making more money than all these saps. And I was the loneliest person in the world because every night I'm with myself, by myself, crying to myself because I couldn't go to sleep. Stop cocaine. I met a lady at work, started dating her, got her pregnant. She had a 3-year-old son with a deadbeat dad, so I dragged her to the courthouse, married her, adopted Nick. We had Max, and we had Tanner, and then we had Abby, and then she realized that she's living with full-blown alcoholic and drug addict. And I got off the coke, and I went back to meetings. In Naperville, I'm now living in Naperville, Illinois, and the West Suburban Fellowship Club had just opened. Day 2, it's open. I go there, and I meet these 2 guys, and I can use their names because they're both dead, Jim Gallery and Joel Ahrens. Turns out Jim Gallery was a bonds trader. Jim's sister was my dad's secretary for 26 years. You can't make this shit up. Joel, I asked him what he did. He said, well, I'm a graphic designer, but I used to work for On Time Courier in Chicago. I said, off Randolph Street, Mike was your manager? He goes, how do you know that? I said, because you guys were the biggest drug front in Chicago. My 2 buddies worked there, and they ran all the weed through Chicago, delivering it through the trucks. He goes, yep, that's where I worked. And so Joel and I became buddies, and I said, did you know a guy there by the name of Darius? He goes, yeah, that hillbilly from Louisiana with the red pickup truck. I said, yeah. He goes, how do you know Darris? I said, he lived across the street from me in college, and when I came back, I dragged Darris back. So these two guys get put in my life, and unfortunately, Jim killed himself 6 years ago from mental health, and Joel died last year after relapsing after 22 years by putting a rig in his arm. It's the reality of this shit. What happens? You drift away from meetings, drift away from your tribe. You think it's a good idea to use again. I made it about 14 months sober, kind of got a sponsor, kind of worked the steps. And Joel and I and Jim were thick as thieves. And Joel asked me to take him to Chicago to move out of his apartment, which I did because I'm a people pleaser. I got to be the AA guy and fucking save everyone. And I went to move him out, and out of the bedroom, his roommate Saba pops. He goes, who are you? I said, I'm Tim. He goes, what are you doing here? I said, I'm moving out Saba. Who are you? I'm Saba. I said, what are you doing? I'm doing heroin. Would you like to do some? Sure. That quick. I'm 14 months sober. What's one bag of heroin? Boy, I snorted that. I fucking love heroin. That was my new best friend. About 3 weeks later, I called Joel. Or Joel called me. So what's wrong? I said, dude, it's 90 degrees out in my front yard in a chair, and I'm puking and shitting myself. I got the awful flu. He goes, have you been seeing Saba? I said, yeah, he came by every day, but I haven't seen him today. He said, I'll be at your house in 10 minutes. He gave me a bag of heroin, said, snort it. I did, and I was fine. He goes, you're dope sick. I said, what's that? He said, well, you've been taking opiates 5 to 6 days. You build a dependency. You can't run out of opiates. I said, okay, I won't. So I didn't run out of heroin. And then about a year and a half later, my drug dealer, who's third highest up with the Maniac Latin Disciples Street Gang, he manages 25,000 gang members, and he's also a bigwig with the Chicago Water Department because that was his front. I go buy a bunch of heroin. Ray says, Tim, get in the car. We're driving downtown Chicago. Pulls up on Well Street, and there's a red door. He said, do you see that? Go through that door. I said, what the hell's this? He goes, oh, you're going to die. He goes, I really like you, but you're buying way too many drugs. That's a methadone clinic. Go get on methadone. Okay. So I did that. And I told my wife at the time I'm a heroin addict. And then she put 2 and 2 together. She is researching why I was throwing up and thought I had some crazy disease. And no, it's just drugs. Yeah. But I did the methadone. I went back to shooting heroin. I did the Suboxone. I went back shooting heroin. I kept Suboxone around so I could keep doing dope. And I started getting consequences. First DUI, second DUI, third DUI, first driving on revoked, second, third, fourth, fifth. I got 2 driving on revokes 8 months apart in the city of Chicago, about 10 miles apart by the same friggin' cop, Officer White. That got me my first stint in prison, 2008. Got a year. Told my kids I was going to India on business for 2 months. They give you a year, but you get out in 61 days. Now you're a felon. And I'd call and it would come up prison. And their mom would be like, your dad's calling from the Prison Hotel in India. True story. So, I was such a prick. I hated lying to my fucking kids. So anyhow, I get out. My oldest son, Nick, was like 14, so I let the cat out of the bag with him. And then my drug dealer's wife died, so I need to go visit him, and I went back shooting dope. I started another recruiting firm. I had an office in the Wrigley building. See, being a headhunter, I place a Oracle database analyst at a $400,000 base salary or comp plan. I'm getting paid $100,000. I get 25%. So that would allot me the opportunity to fuck off and do whatever drugs I wanted and act like I'm working. And my day would consist of getting up at 4:30, drinking coffee and vodka, shoot some heroin, get the kids up, get them to school, take the train to Chicago. I'd leave at 8. I'd get in at 9 because that's when the bar opened. Have 4 or 5 martinis. I'd go to my office. I'd call Flacco because Ray now killed himself because his wife died. And Flacco would bring me 5 grams of heroin every day, and I'd go to my office, and I'd shoot dope. But at 10:30, I was 100 Michigan Avenue at the Billy Goat Tavern, because that's when that opened, and Jeff, the bartender, had worked there 26 years. So I'd sit with Jeff till about 2. I'd go to my office, make some calls, maybe work, and I'd usually spend 3 to 4 nights a week under Lower Wacker Drive with the homeless people, Mike, Cecil, and Patch, because that's where I was more comfortable instead of being in my 5-bedroom house with my wife and 4 kids, because that's where the disease of addiction takes you, with yourself, by yourself, crying to yourself. December 16, 2010, I drove one more time. I overdosed while driving. I hit 2 cars. I put 4 people in the hospital, one being a 9-month-old baby. I don't remember a thing because I was dead on the scene. By the grace of God, all those people were okay. Spent a week in Cook County Jail, got bailed out. Went and retained the best lawyer I could. Started fighting my case. I fought it for 21 months. I mean, this is my 3rd DUI. Aggravated, 5th driving on revoked, possession of drugs, and I think I'm going to beat it because I didn't get blood or urine. That's how fucking insane I am. And I was high as a kite every day going to court. I wanted to die. I didn't give a shit if I lived or died. You're shooting that amount of heroin every day. You're trying to kill yourself. I was just too much of a pussy to go to a big enough building or put a gun in my mouth. It's just a fact. That's the truth. October 30th of 2012, they gave me 7 years. I went in, I weighed 158 pounds, skin and bone, walking death, and I brought 60 bags of heroin into the jail with me. If I would have got caught with that, that's 15 to 45 years across the board, bringing drugs into a penal institution. I didn't give a shit. I just wanted to see the doctor and get some meds. Well, the sickness ultimately kicked in, got transferred to Stateville, spent a few weeks there. I shit and puked myself for 2 weeks. I didn't sleep a wink for a month. And about 2 weeks in, I looked out of my cell. I said, God, higher power, Allah, Buddha, Fred, whatever's there, please take away this obsession and compulsion use. And I swear I'll turn my will and life over to you. And I said, God, I got one more favor. Please let me get into Sheridan Prison. And then 3 hours later, I was transferred to Sheridan Prison. When they transfer you, they get you up, put you in the bullpens, and I'm the only white guy, and there's 50 guys, and all I hear is, on my mama, keep a 100. I'm like, what in the fuck is on my mama, keep a 100? Well, that was Quelo. So I get introduced to Quelo, the biggest loudmouth gang member out there. We get on the bus, and who am I shackled next to? Asshole Quelo. And to him, hey, man, what'd you get, a 7-piece? I got an 8-piece. I get a 12-piece. Like, it's a badge of honor. And there's a white guy in the back of the bus, double shackled, and he goes, hey, Whitey, what'd you get? And the guy goes, 40 to life, and the whole bus goes silence. He goes, well, what'd you do? He goes, I caught my girlfriend cheating on me, so I cut off her head and her boyfriend's head, and I FedExed him to her mom. Just like that. Bus pulls in. We get off. I said, on my mama, don't let this asshole get off the bus. And sure as shit, Quelo's my cellie. So this prison, Sheridan, it's a medium prison. You're locked down 18 hours a day, but it's a structured community. It's a badge of honor to go to Sheridan. 28 prisons in Illinois, 2 had therapeutic drug treatment programs run by Westcare, and I got into one. So you do 30 days in Seg, and that first, you got to wear baby blue Smurf outfits and all this, and you got to say this poem, memorize it. Took me fucking forever to memorize that, ADD boy here. But that night we go down, you got an hour day room, and Quelo said, I'll get you on the phone first. Call my wife Peaches for me. So I had my wife three-way Peaches, and we go back to the cell, and Quelo's like, hey, help me get this off. I said, dude, I don't go that way. He said, shut up, Helmet. I pulled, ramen noodles are falling out, envelopes, new. I said, what's up? He goes, dude, I'm a gang chief. I'm plugged. These bitches take care of us in here. He goes, you're my cellie, half's yours. I'm like, fuck, I like you, Quelo. Quelo ended up being a good friend of mine. Then you do orientation hall. Then I got into one of the little buildings in back. And I walk into my cell. There's a big black guy on the bunk, 400 pounds, reading an AA big book. And I walk in, and he looks at me like I bothered him. Hey, Whitey, you into recovery? I said, yeah, why? He said, because if not, you ain't coming in this fucking cell, brother, because that's all we do in here. I said, I'm into recovery. He said, hey, I'm Big Perk. I said, hey, Big Perk, I'm Tim. Nice to meet you. He looks at me again. He goes, Tim? I think I'll call you Powder. I said, you can call me whatever you want. Perk was a gang chief with a gang sec I won't mention because this is being taped on the west side of Chicago for 30 years. He's a ruthless fucking man. His cousin stole 25 grand from him, so he duct taped him into a chair and ripped off both sets of his lips, and he paid him the next day. You owed him $400, he'd take you to a 4-story building. You jump or tell him where you want to get shot. He'll call an ambulance. Yeah. I wasn't in prison to do push-ups for noodles and get swole and play dominoes and cards. I was there to change. I was at my bottom. We read about 400 books. We wrote 2 business plans, went through the steps of AA, NA, read the Bible twice, watched corn grow, cut down, grow again. We sat in the day room, had a meeting. We walked the yard every day, we had a meeting. Watch corn grow, get cut down, grow again. My wife, who became my ex-wife in prison, brought two of my kids to visit every 2 weeks. My worst fear was my oldest son, Nick, was going to die from an overdose because he had got into dope and OD'd twice while I was in prison. See, I was the dad that let him and his buddies smoke pot in the basement and drink, and of course I'm upstairs shooting heroin. It's funny how parents can justify drinking with their kids, but can't do heroin with them. You can smoke pot with your kids, but I can't do heroin with mine? You fucking hypocrite. True story. Think about that one. So I remember a lot of kids started drinking with their moms and dads at an early age. But then when they get the consequences, they want to blame alcohol. They don't want to blame their parenting. I was a horseshit parent. Horseshit. And I was a Cub Scout Packmaster for 10 years and ran 35 dens and shot heroin every day. I was the ultimate chameleon. Nobody knew I had a heroin problem. Nobody. I ran the largest SAP implementation in the world for Conagra Foods. They were spending $10 million a day. And my whole crew ran that, and we made a ton of money, and I shot heroin every day and totally blew that up for myself, blew that career up. It's just normal. Going to county jail's normal. It's not normal. So prison, for me, Tim Ryan was the greatest experience of my life. I absolutely loved the 13 and a half months I did because I got good time. I got 3 for the 3-year DUI, 3 years and 1, so they just make you do the top number. I got 7 on paper, so I got to do 3. They cut it in half, and for every 4 months you did at Sheridan, they took a month off. So I ended up doing 13 and a half months. Actually, the day I caught my case, 3 years to the day I walked out of prison. 13 and a half months clean and sober, lost my home in foreclosure. My kids had to move to their mother-in-law's. My ex-wife picked me up, took me to downtown Naperville. Her and my mother, my mommy, thank you, mother. My mommy secured a townhouse for me and said, the bills are paid for 3 months. I'll put $100 a week in your bank. You're on your own. No problem. Took 4 days for Ramsey, my lazy parole agent, to show up. You can't leave the house. Ramsey left at 3. I walked up to the 5 p.m. Alano Club, got John as my sponsor, went through the steps again, never missed a meeting for about 3 years. I went back to work in the technology space 3 weeks out of prison. I commuted 2.5 hours by 2 trains and a bus each way to work, so 5 hours total every day. And I was at the 8 o'clock meeting every night. I did a 6 a.m. meeting every Saturday, and I seal-coated driveways on the weekend because I had bills to pay. I had kids to take care of. My 4 kids came over the night I got out of prison. We had dinner, and that's the last time I was together with my 4 kids as a family. I called my mom 3 months in. I said, fuck this recruiting. I need to borrow 15 grand. I'd like to borrow 15 grand. She said, for what? I said, I'm going to set up a nonprofit. She said, are you going to pay me back this time? I said, yeah. She said, the money will be in your account tomorrow. And I set up a Man in Recovery Foundation. My motto is, we take people from dope to hope, helping one addict at a time. Dope, hope, yeah. And I set up the first Heroin Anonymous meeting in DuPage County, Illinois, which morphed into a kid coming in saying, I take Xanax, can I sit in? I said, sure. To a mother coming in with their daughter saying, can I sit in on your meeting? And I'd have the loved ones come with the person struggling. I ran 7 of those. 3 were 100 miles from my house, and I did that for 3 years straight. Never missed one of those. 19 months sober. I'm a few months out of prison. My oldest son's in treatment again. I go visit Nick, and it's his 6th time, and he had been in sober living prior. And he's like, Dad, picture me and you, father and son team, speaking in schools together. I said, that'd be great, get sober. He goes, I will. 30 days out of treatment, he's back in jail. Did 45 days, got out. His mom picked him up, fed him. Said, you're not coming to my house, you're not coming to Dad. So I got it all figured out. 5 days out of jail, I called Nick and I said, dude, come to my house and get Narcan. He's like, Dad, I'm not on that bullshit. Alexis and I are getting an apartment. I got a sponsor. I'm going to meetings, and I believed him. 2 days later, August 1st, 2014, his mother called me at, 5:30 in the morning and said, get out of bed. I said, I'm up. Said, I'll be at the house in 10 minutes. Nick OD'd. We shot to Hinsdale Hospital, ran into the emergency room. Tim and Shannon Ryan here to see our son Nick. He overdosed, and 30 seconds later, the chaplain walked out. I knew my kid was dead instantly. What was my next thought? Say it. Say it. No, I didn't want to get high. Should probably call my sponsor. And that's what I did. See, I had the tools. My son died on my 21-month sobriety date. That's where I carry my son today. I carry Nick's ashes in here. Within 30 minutes, I had 6 people in recovery in that emergency room. Walking in, seeing your dead son's lifeless body with an aspirator in his mouth. Not a good look. Then the cop takes me down the hall and he said, there they are, and there's a glass room and two boys and a girl. And I said, who's they? He said, that's your son's girlfriend or boyfriend's. We're charging them with drug-induced homicide. I said, the fuck you are? So what do you want to do? I said, I'm going to put them all in treatment. I said, that could have been me getting high with my kid. I don't blame them. I blame the disease of addiction and how stupid and uneducated they are. They didn't know about the Good Samaritan law. You call 911, the cops come, hit him with Narcan, take drugs and leave. Nobody gets arrested, but nobody educates the youth about it. Because politics suck. Sorry if you work in politics. But, yeah, dealt with that, and I went to a meeting that night, never looked back. Since my son died, I've been to about 170 funerals. I've assisted over 30,000 people into treatment. I wrote a book. I was guest of the 2016 State of the Union address. I sat from here to Michelle Obama. Had a documentary in my life on A&E in 2017 called Dope Man. You can watch that on Apple or Amazon Prime. I don't make any money. You can go to Amazon and buy my book. It's called From Dope to Hope, A Man in Recovery. I make $6. I use the money to pay for people to get into sober living. I can read your sign. I got my little clock here. I do this for a living. But don't do this for a living and then have COVID hit, because my wife and I shifted to speaking events and that fucking COVID hit. 85 events canceled like that. Lots of deposits returned, and then we got COVID. For 2.5 months. Almost killed me. I'd rather kick heroin in a prison cell and booze than have what we did. It was that bad. But I've got breathing issues due to it still and all that, but oh well, I'm sober and I don't care. When I got out of prison, the first meeting I went to, I sat next to some lady and she asked me to speak at a meeting, and next thing she leaves her husband, next thing we're kind of hanging out. Next thing I tell her she's a whack job and I'm done, and she tells me she's pregnant. I'm like, what the fuck? So I let this psychopath move in, and 4 months, our daughter's 4 months old, and she pulls a fake suicide, and it starts. 1.2 million later, 1.2 million later that I've spent on 3 motherfucking lawyers, because this alcoholic with bipolar lies, cheats, and steals and has absolutely destroyed my daughter's life. The most selfish, self-centered individual I've ever met. All she did was paint trauma on her daughter. And with COVID hitting, it screwed up court and all this, and it's been a nightmare. But my saving grace was this little chickapoo that walked into my life. You know, I would come home, I started working in the treatment space. You know, my son dies on my 21-month sobriety date. About 4 months later, I had my nonprofit, my support groups, and I started working in treatment out of Florida, but I lived in the Midwest, so I started doing interventions and speaking events and all this stuff, and a lot of news shows and talk shows and all this shit. And I was doing a talk for Salesforce downtown Chicago, like my TED Talk. And a lady came up afterwards, hey, you know, I was molested. I'm like, hold on, I'm a speaker, I'm not a therapist. So I want to partner with the female. I'd been following this lady on social media for years. I think she had been following me, is how it really goes. But she was 13 and a half years sober. She was a supermodel and an actress, but she was a legit real deal. So I was in LA doing an intervention, and I shot her a message on Facebook Messenger. She was on a plane to Florida. She never uses it, happened, and we started messaging. I said, hey, would you ever be interested in partnering up kind of to be a power couple? Do speaking events together, do interventions, maybe open a treatment center. So we started messaging. I said, hey, I'll be in Florida this weekend. Let's grab breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Well, I got to Florida, I got busy, I blew her off. Then I get that phone call, hey, thanks for breakfast, lunch or dinner, you jerk. You're like everybody else. And so we talked for like 6 weeks, and I bought a ticket, flew to Florida to meet Jenny, and I had an interview set up at the treatment center I was chief marketing officer for, and we're going to bring her in. So she picks me up at Fort Lauderdale Airport 11:30 in the morning. We'd been talking for 6 weeks. Never met her. Gives me a hug, but it's like we're instantly connected. I give her a little kiss on the cheek. She goes interviews. I take her to an early dinner. I've known her 4 hours. I said, I'm going to marry you and spend the rest of my life with you. She goes, hey, maybe you want to finish that second divorce? I said, that'll be done in 4 or 5 weeks. She goes, go sow your oats, play the field. I go, I don't operate that way. I know what I want, and I want you. I was divorced 4 weeks later. I packed up, I moved to LA. We were between LA and Florida. We got engaged 4 months later on the beach in Florida. And a few months later, December 31st, 2019, did I say this? Yeah, at the Justice of the Peace in Beverly Hills, my little daughter, her mother, and me and Jenny got married 7.5 years ago. It's been the greatest fucking decision of my life. Because I'll tell you something, I didn't know what true love was until Jennifer Jimenez walked into my life. She's never been married. This lady speaks 4 languages, discovered at 13 years old on the Santa Monica Pier, traveled Europe all through high school, little movies like Blow, Vanilla Sky, Charlie Angel, Sweetest Thing, and then TV shows like Celebrity Rehab, Sober House, Real Housewives. And this lady wants to marry me? Yep. Boy, she had no clue what she is in for. I'm Tim motherfucking Ryan, the chaos agent. But you know what? It's been the greatest show. It's been the greatest 7.5 years. And it's been ups and downs, trials and tribulations. And we go to Florida for a vacation and it turns into a 1.5 year long concierge treatment gig. We speak internationally, nationwide. We do interventions. We sober coach, sober companion. We got a podcast. Still does TV and movies. Shit, I filmed a feature film 3 years ago. I had 22 pages of lines. Remember, I'm ADD boy. I can't remember anything. And I had some guys I knew. Called my buddy Tom Sizemore, rest in peace. Tom helped me. Called my buddy Michael Madsen, rest in peace. Michael gave me some ideas. Called my buddy Jay Moore. He gave me some guidance and direction. Somebody else I called, Tom Arnold. Tommy gave me some guidance. My wife walks in, I hang up the phone. She goes, were you just talking to Shia LaBeouf? I said, yeah. She goes, he's filming a Martin Scorsese movie. I said, I know. I texted him, hey, Shia, I got a movie role. He says, Tim, I'll call you in 10 minutes. You got 15 minutes. And Shia told me exactly what to do. And I don't think I've talked to him since. And I went in and I hit a grand slam. And it was a lot of fun. I give a shit about filming movies. But it was a neat experience. My opening scene was with DeAndre Bonds, who played Scully in Snowfall, and I was the only white guy in an all-black cast. It was interesting. It was like a rap gangster movie. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Thanks, honey. So when all that shit was going down out of living with my daughter's mother, and she had to go to, attempted to kill herself, so I had to fly her to Florida to do an inpatient mental health ward. I need a fucking nanny. So I flew my mom up, and she said, I can do a few days. So I made a phone call, and, yo, come on over. 2 months. Who is my nanny? Come on, class, who's paying attention? My cellmate, James Perkins, Big Perk. Gang chief for 30 years, ruthless killer. Yeah, that's my nanny. Yeah. Perk, I called him up. He came, moved in. I'd come home. He'd be cleaning Mackenzie in the sink. Dinner would be made. He's my dearest friend in the world. He's 18 years sober. 18 years sober. And he just called me the other day. His son, last time I saw his son, Serge, was walking the yard at Sheridan Prison, and I had to give him a noodle, and Serge just moved in with his dad. But the greatest gift was my wife, a little over a year ago, saying, we got to get Mackenzie. See, we had a place in Lake Worth Beach, Florida, too, and last June 3rd, I drove to Georgia, picked my daughter up for the summer. We're in Florida for 10 days, place sold. We came back to our place in LA. Mackenzie got integrated. I was actually at my sponsor, Feldy's house, for a home group on a Thursday night, and Jenny's blowing up my phone, you need to get home immediately. So I left, got home, and she said, Mackenzie, I got to take my daughter back to her mom's for school year in a week. And Jenny says, Mackenzie spilled the beans. 3 days before you picked her up, her mother was drunk in a blackout throwing candlestick holders at her husband, and Mackenzie ran outside in fear and called 911. Second time in 6 months. So I took every dollar I had, went and retained the best lawyer, and filed for emergency temporary custody, which you get about a 5% chance of winning, and I won emergency temporary custody. My daughter, our daughter Mackenzie, has been living with us for the past year now. Completed 5th grade here, going on to 6th grade. Her mother has not seen her in a year. Her mother has 4 opportunities this year, once each quarter, to come out for 2 days and visit her daughter. And she won't do that, and then I will finally get full custody of my daughter. But my daughter has been raised by this lady for the past 3.5 years with unconditional love, guidance, and direction. You know, tomorrow's an interesting day because it's Father's Day, and I really don't like Father's Day, maybe because my son's dead, flying above, but I celebrate the time next year. I fuck around with it, but I celebrate the 20 years he was on this planet, and his work here was done, and God called him home. If you believe in God, that's what happened. So, you know, how people mourn and live in people's death is beyond me. Too many people live in the day someone died versus all the memories they made over the time they had with them. So I don't ever live through the day someone died. Think about that one. Let that one resonate. But Jenny stepped up, man. Full-time mom. What's it like being a full-time mom? Never been one in your life. Unconditional love, we have a very peaceful home. And tomorrow will be the 3rd year in a row that I get to spend with my little daughter, Mackenzie, for Father's Day, which is a blessing. Why? Because in my life, it's God, recovery, same thing. God, recovery, family, then work. That's how I work my life. I'll end with this. I wake up every morning, 4 or 5 a.m. I throw on cup of coffee, I sit outside, I pray, I meditate, I do a gratitude list, I share it with about 100 guys, I hop on a 6 a.m. Zoom meeting every day, then I get my day going. That's every day. If you want what I have, you do what I do. Scotty, thanks for asking me to come up. My name's Tim Ryan, grateful to an alcoholic and drug addict. Have a great day. Thank you.